I'd like to call the Groseville Airport Commerce Park Commission to order at 7:02. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeff, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2 is roll call. Mr. Moran is here. Mr. Rathel is excused. Mr. Van Oz? Here. Mr. Mans? Here. Mr. Stoll is excused. And Mr. Fulbone?
Here.
Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our newest member of our commission, Mr. Jeff Fulbone. Jeff, would you take a minute and give us a little bit of your background?
I grew up on Groseville, graduated from Groseville High School, and moved back 6 years ago, and wanted to give back to the community and join a commission. So I've applied and was graciously accepted.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to serve on the commission, and as a volunteer in the community, the township is grateful that you're willing to serve, and hopefully you'll be on our commission for a long time. So thank you for volunteering.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is additions or deletions to the agenda. We are going to delete item number 4 because those minutes of that meeting were not included in our packet, and as you know, we've had our previous 3 meetings canceled because of a lack of a quorum, and they were in our packages to those prior meetings, but they didn't get in this one. So we will remove that item from the agenda and just move everything up from there. So with that, if there's no other additions or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz, supported by Mr. Mans to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 4, which is the financial report for March 2013, and included in your packet is our financial report. We are now completing our fiscal year. We have in our budget revenues budgeted at $765,342, and our revenue to date is $874,224, which is 114% of our budget. So we had a good year as it relates to our revenue. And our expenditures are the same, $765,342. And to date, our expenditures are $697,922, which equals out to 91% of our expenditures. So we did a little bit better in revenue this year, and we spent a little bit less than our expended or our budgeted expenditures. So overall, we had a decent year financially. Our capital reserves, as of 2/28, have a total of $607,815, and our past due rent summary, which is through March 11th, is $2,776. So that's the lowest it's been in quite a while. So we are making progress, and we currently have pending legal action / a settlement plan with 4 of our tenants that equal $15,894. And any comment on that?
I'll start with the pending legal actions. We are still working down. Stephen Smith is still on a payment plan. I expect to have him off of there within the next month or 2. We should have his account closed up and paid in full. Savvy Designs is on a payment plan. If you remember, it's a very low one. It's about $100 a month, so that one will be on there for quite some time. I can cover the Rush Fire Brick. Currently, we actually are going back to court tomorrow to reach a settlement on that case. The decided amount will be $500 a month. I'm waiting to hear back on the attorney on that one. We did have some issues with that tenant claiming that he had made other deposits and we weren't accounting for them, so we had to show all the paperwork and things like that. But our amounts were correct, and we're hoping for about a $500 a month settlement.
Okay.
And then I'll add the fuel inventory as well. The Jet A is currently valued at $17,638. The 100 low lead is $9,166. That was a reading from this morning. We're working the 100 low lead down right now. We have to get it below about 500 gallons. We need to get some maintenance done on our annual maintenance done on the tank. And we're also finding a little bit of rust in some of the filters, so we might have to epoxy coat a couple things in there and do some minor repairs, but it was budgeted for.
Anything else you want to point out, Mike, in our budget that you might want us to be aware of?
Not too much. I do feel like we ended the year pretty strong. I'm happy with the outcome of our revenues being much higher than the expenditures. The past due summary has been getting worked down. I think it was last month was up around 3,200 if I recall, so I'm trying to get some of the T-hanger tenants we had behind back up on rent, and some other of the tenants have gotten off the list and become current, so we're getting there. Other than that concludes.
Is there any comments or questions for Mike on the March 2013 budget report? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Mans, supported by Mr. Van Oz, to receive and file the March 2013 financial report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 5 is the manager's report. 5A is the FAA/OFA inspection. And included in your packet is a letter from the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, notifying the Groseal Airport that they are coming for an inspection on, if I remember right, it was the April 30th and May 1st, and you're expecting them here both days, Mike?
Yes, that's correct. The first day, we've had a couple of issues with the FAA open over the last couple of years. If you'll remember the object-free area with the apartment complex here to the west, part of that kind of incurs on our object-free zone there, or object-free area. So I'm hoping on the second day we're going to have that resolved. And then we've also, if you remember a long time ago, Derek had applied for the land release of basically the whole Commerce Park and some other parcels of property here. I am hoping to have a resolution out of the FAA on that, so some good will come out of this meeting. That'll probably be on the second day. The first day, I anticipate that they'll want to go through the buildings. It's called a land use compliance inspection, so they'll want to go through all of our buildings and properties and get a feel for, how we're using them and making sure they're pretty big on fair market value, making sure we're leasing all the buildings that should be, and there's basically no behind-the-scene deals going on. And then they'll also go through our paperwork on the first day, probably leases and our grants and some other arrangements with them. But I do anticipate the second day will be the day that we get to resolve all of our issues we've had open for quite some time.
Mike, do they show up with information in hand that tells them what fair market value is?
I believe they do. They bring in somebody from the airport district office. As long as you're in the ballpark. I think they had some issues with like T-hangers, for example, at some other airports. The manager would let a buddy have one for free, and the neighbor's getting charged, $300 a month. They're trying to clean that kind of stuff up. I don't really see too many issues with our fair market value. It could be, I need to check into the arrangements we have in our soccer field and things like that, or how they see agreements between the township and the airport. And I'm not sure fully yet how they interpret that and if they accept it or if that needs to be all fair market value kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah, just to comment, the soccer fields themselves, that was all turned over to the Recreation Department. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be no issue there.
Okay.
Because that's no longer our property.
You're right. We did have a land release on those.
The only thing that was in question, and you should have adequate documentation, was we allowed the Gyra or Giza, one or the other, to utilize a portion of that for their football fields. That would be the field to the east of the soccer fields. And that was run through the FAA and was approved by the FAA, so I think you've got paperwork on that. I don't think that'll be an issue. So I don't see any issue there. I'm a little bit concerned about the T-hanger inspections. The airport committee has raised some concerns about what they're going to allow, what they're not going to allow. We're making sure now, I think you're going through ensuring that our current tenants are following the lease that we gave them,
That's correct.
but we're not real sure whether FAA is going to accept that. So there's a little concern with that, but I think the airport committee has been following up with IOPA and the rest of the governing bodies to make sure that we get through that one all right, too. That could create a problem.
Just so I understand, Mike, is it correct that if our lease allows different activities than the FAA, then the FAA governs, and what we may allow someone to do with a hangar, if it's against the FAA, then that gets, I guess it becomes an activity that's not allowed.
Yeah, that's correct. Normally, it's kind of like the state and federal laws. The federal will always supersede the state or the local. So if, you could split off and try to say you're going to go your own route, but then the FAA always has actions they can take against that, funding and things like that. So they do have, their rules will supersede ours.
I mean, I guess sort of shame on us if we have a lease that allows people to do things in the hangar that the FAA doesn't allow, because they should match up. And we're going to need to make sure that, in the future that is the case. So I guess we'll find out after the inspection.
I think that's just one of those things we're going to have to wait and see how the inspection goes. Like Ted did say, we just went through and did our annual safety and fire inspection, all the T hangars, to make sure, because I haven't been in all of them yet, so I wanted to get a feel for what we really have. I've been in most of them, but pretty minor violations here. There are a couple of hangars we'll need to get cleaned up, and I'm trying to get that done before the FAA inspection, just to make sure that we are at least in compliance with our own rules that we've set.
And I assume, Mike, if any of the commission members would like to be in attendance when they're here, they're invited to attend if anybody has the time or wants to be around. So please feel free to contact Mike if you're interested to be here when the FAA inspection happens.
Well, just being as though it's probably going to develop, I guess looking at worst-case scenario, it could develop into an issue. I plan on attending all the meetings on both days to stress on the FAA that the township has turned us into an enterprise zone, and we receive no revenues from the taxpayers, and anything that they might do to hamper or diminish our ability to run our T-hangars would be a very big detriment to the community, because at some point in time we need to rent these T-hangars for income. So I plan on attending all of the meetings.
Well, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on the FAA inspection?
Have we ever gone through one of these before?
Not that I'm aware of, not the FAA inspection. We normally have an annual MDOT inspection, but they don't go through the facilities like that. They'll come down and make sure our approaches are clean for the runways and that our pavement's in okay condition and that we're abiding by the basic rules outside, but they don't generally go in any of our buildings or facilities. And to my knowledge, I spoke with the previous manager. He had never had one, and I'm not aware of one ever having occurred here on the field.
As far as I know, since this commission's been in existence, we have not had one.
So would we expect a warning or a written time to fix certain things, or does it come initially with a fine?
Yeah, when we've talked to other airports that have had it done, normally, and with the FAA, normally they'll give you a grace period of, they'll come in and write a report up and say you have 120 days to clean your issues up, and then we'll start fining and some other punitive actions. But they normally give you a fairly decent grace period that's easy to work with.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5B, which is the duathlon update.
I just want to bring this to the commission. I know if you recall from some of our previous meetings, we were going back and forth on whether to hold the duathlon this year or not. And Kenny Krell, who runs 3 disciplines in the duathlon here, and I were going back and forth trying to reach a settlement on this. One of the issues we had was that we weren't getting the funding that we were really seeking from it. So one of the deals I worked back with him is the big issue on our end, or the big hassle, is the closing the runway and setting up all the operations for him to come down. So the one thing I did have him go back and rework is give me a ballpark figure for what you think for not using the runway, using the maybe the ramp and some other airport facilities like the nature area and back in there. And he did come back with he would guarantee us the $300 amount there plus a percentage of all the participant funds over a certain amount. So when we got down to the actual numbers, it was going to be similar to what we normally make. I'd say between probably $500 and $700. donated to us. The reason I brought this back up was because I do think it is important to, if we have this event every year, even if we're looking at switching next year, I think it's important to keep it going so we don't lose our clientele that are coming down to the airport one year. But I would say next year, I do think we should look at different events and future events. I just wanted to get, I guess, your opinion on if we should continue with this or not. I had told him I believe that we could continue on it because he needed a pretty quick decision to put it up on their webpage or not. But again, our plan was just to use the staging area out here in front of the township, possibly the ramp in the nature area, but not close any of the runways or impede on the airport significantly.
And all the volunteers are going to be organized by them?
Yes, all the volunteers, all of the sponsors, everything. So it really takes the burden off of the airport manager and saves them quite a bit of time. Really, I'm just going to be here to open the door and monitor the airport, make sure nothing goes wrong. They're going to manage, coordinate the police and ambulance and everything else for the event.
Anybody have any comments or questions or
Did
opinions?
we ever incur any cost for the police or ambulance?
No, normally the police and ambulance would just be, because the airport was involved in the event so much, they would just volunteer their time for us.
Have you talked to them?
This year, he's going to pay for the police and ambulance. The three disciplines will. He said he would contact them. The only thing I haven't seen out of this yet is an actual contract, which I'm waiting to hear back from Kenny on. He's been a little slow with getting back to me, but I'm hoping he'll get down soon if we go through with this and measure a course out and have a signed contract and deal for at least this year. I told him we would only do a 1 year, because if you remember in previous conversations, he was interested in the 3-year deal, and I told him I didn't think that was a possibility.
And what's the date, Mike?
The date was going to be, I'm sorry, I don't think I have it in front of me. I think it's within the next about a month and a half from now. I don't remember the exact date. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
And so are they already promoting this, or is it still not being promoted?
They're already promoting it. It's on their website.
Okay.
I think it's on their website, is to be determined, last time I looked.
When I looked last week, they had registration open for it. But again, I haven't signed a contract with them yet. I haven't seen the actual paperwork between the two of us.
Well, I think it's important that you get a hold of Duncan and Chief Porcerelli
Okay.
and make sure, because this can be pretty costly for somebody, and I just want them to know. I think before we sign any contract, we'd want them solidly on board with the work, because it's going to call in the reserves and the vehicles that are involved. It's a pretty big event, and we can't just let them do it, because we have to make sure that traffic is controlled on the island and safety is controlled on the island. Mm-hmm. So we're going to need to get our reserves involved. So you better get both the chiefs involved and make sure they're on board with this before you sign anything.
I think we also, once you do sign the contract, whatever we can do to help promote the event, we should do that. Put it on our website or the township's website, or whatever we can do to help promote it, because we want it to be a success as well as they do. So whatever we can do to help generate participants, we should do that.
Okay.
Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5C, which is the Rush Fire Brick legal settlement.
I think I covered everything I wanted to with that in the financial summary. Mr. Chairman, if I would, something just popped in my head that happened last week, if I include it in my manager's report. Jeff and I talked about it a little bit earlier. Last week, Thursday, I believe we had a pretty good lightning strike here on the airport. It blew out about 20 lights on our taxiway on Charlie and Foxtrot. I think it was in that area. It blew the tops off about 10 of them, and 17 of the lights that are out are LED lights, which are very expensive a piece. If it's just a diode, you're looking at about $300 a piece. If the power supply is gone to it, it's going to be more. So I just want to make it aware. I think it may end up being an insurance claim. I am still working on getting a quote back from our company out in Howell on what the damage actually is. But we have we contacted some engineers, and we have been able to get the system back online and put some incandescents in there temporarily to keep them functional, at least until we get a long-term solution.
Obviously, keep us up to date what happens with, whether it becomes an insurance claim or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6 6A is, these are action items, Gary Jones lease renewal. And included in our packet is a resolution that reads, based upon a recommendation from the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Manager, Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby approves a new lease between Gary Jones and the Groseal Municipal Airport. Before we have discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Van Oz.
I'll support.
Support by Mr. Mans. Under discussion. One thing that I saw, Mike, on this is under the base rental year, shouldn't the rate for the year 3 be whatever the new rate is plus the CPI?
Yeah, that's correct.
Does everybody see that? What we have is, it's
So it's-
$1,128.72 plus CPI for year 2. So whatever that number is goes down to line 3, and then you get the CPI added to that number. The tenant in question has been a long-term tenant of ours at the airport and has been in good financial standing, which is a good thing because we do run into tenants that we obviously have trouble collecting rent from time to time. So it's good that we have a tenant that does pay their bills every month when they're due. Any questions on the proposed resolution? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Van Oz, supported by Mr. Mans to make the recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 6B is Dave's Hot Rod Garage Storage Renewal, and we have a resolution in front of us that reads, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby authorizes the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Manager to formulate an addendum to the agreement between Dave's Hot Rod Garage, Inc. and the Groseal Municipal Airport for inside storage management services for Building 63. Terms are to be listed in the addendum are outlined in the history, purpose, and explanation of this resolution. And Derek, just want to make sure I'm reading this right, that the term of this renewal is just from May 1st, 2013 through October 31st, 2013.
That's correct. I do that in terms to kind of keep the building open and available if we have a big tenant opportunity to come in. I don't want, we've done one-year leases in the past. We've also just let in the summertime the lease expire and go month to month. The tenant requested this year to at least get a locked-in term, so I felt comfortable going with 6 months. But again, I'm not really comfortable going for a year-long lease on this kind of an arrangement, just in case we do have the opportunity of a long-term tenant coming into that building that will make us a little more revenue.
And how's business been there?
Good. This winter we were pretty much full. I think we might have had maybe one or two car spots open, so we did pretty well this year. The summertime is normally a little slower. We got some boats coming and going and trailer kind of parking. The wintertime is really our big revenue season. I think about probably 2/3 of our revenue are generated in the winter in there.
And I'm assuming that this tenant pays rent on time and has been a good financial tenant for us.
Yep, on time, and he provides a very good financial breakdown of all the vehicles in there in the summary.
He's an excellent tenant.
With that, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz,
Support.
supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is item 6C, which is the amended special event policy. And included in your packet is a resolution that reads, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park hereby approves the amended special events policy revised by the airport manager and the airport advisory committee. And before anyone makes a motion to approve, I'm going to recommend that we table this.
Study session.
I had a chance to read through it, and there are a number of things that need to be corrected there's a number of places that it still refers to the Airport Commission.
Okay.
And there is no Airport Commission anymore. I see Derek Thiel's name is on one of the forms on here.
I'll support the motion to table.
Well, I can't make it as chairman, so do you want to make that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Van Oz. Support. Supported by Mr. Mans to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. So, Mike, would you get a chance to, I mean, I've marked it up. I'll give you, I'm happy to give you my markup where I had some questions. You know, there's some places where it refers to, on page 12, under the safety area and under the permits and waivers. In red, it says manager, and I don't know if that's the airport manager or is that the township manager. So I think that needs to be spelled out, what manager that is. And like I said, there's just a couple other places where, like in paragraph 16, it talks about signs, and it says, "No sign shall be erected on any property without the express permission of the owner." And I didn't know, was that us as the owner, or was that someone that might be somewhere else located on one of the streets that, you know, abut the airport?
Okay.
So that just needed to be cleared up a little bit. And again, there's a number of places that it references the Airport Commission, and that needs to be changed, so. Okay, so that's, item's been tabled. Moving on to item number 6D is the recommendation to the airport CPC chairman. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Mike had already sent my name into the township board as the chair, so I guess we're just confirming I'm the chair unless you want to go in a different direction and appoint somebody else.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Van Oss, supported by Mr. Mans, to appoint Ron Moran as chairman of the Airport Commerce Park Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. I think, thank you for appointing me for another year.
You think?
Thank you. Item number 6E is a recommendation to appoint a Commerce Park Commission vice chair. Our current chair is Mr. Rathel. I have not had a chance to talk to him. Mike, I don't know if you've talked to him, but I'm assuming he's willing to serve as vice chair again if that's who we should appoint.
I agree.
He's not here, I'm not going to give him the opportunity to say no.
That's what happens when you don't show up, you get appointed as vice chairs. We've got a motion by Mr. Mans.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Van Oz to appoint Mr. John Rathel as the vice chairman of the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is item number 6F, which is our meeting days for 2013 and 2014. You can see that for the next year, we are continuing to meet on the third Monday of the month, except for, excuse me, except for January and February, which the third Monday in both of those months is a holiday for the township. So the meeting's been moved to Tuesday, and we will continue to meet here in the boardroom at 7 p.m. So with that, there's a resolution that reads, Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby adopts the following meeting schedule for fiscal year 13-14. Further, that the Airport Commerce Park Commission requests the televising of all regular Airport Commerce Park Commission meetings contingent upon room and township staff availability. I'll entertain
I'll make
a
the
motion. Motion by Mr. Van Oz.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. The next item is number 7, which is our subcommittee reports. And as far as I know, Mike, we don't have any active except for the marketing subcommittee, which obviously John is our representative, so he may have a report for us at our next meeting. Item number 8 is a discussion item, and that is our future plans for building number 61 and 62, and Mike, I'll let you lead that discussion.
I just wanted to open up the floor a little bit and discuss, just try to get some direction from the commission on where we would like to start looking into for building 61, 62, if we want to just continue leasing it long-term, if we want to try to go out and get a broker for the building, or if we want to consider piecing out either 61, 62, or building 63 again. I was just trying to get a broad direction to go in and start looking for and draw some information on. I obviously do currently have the building listed on numerous sites right now and being advertised. I'm working with Lauren Smith to kind of draw up a brochure for the two buildings as well that she's helping me with, and it's starting to look really nice. I'll pass that along once it's complete.
Mike, can you state what the square footage is of each of the buildings?
Building 61, 62 combined is 68,000 square feet roughly. 63 is 43,800 square feet.
And currently, the asking rental rate on those buildings
It's
is?
$225 a square foot. It's a triple net lease, so the tenant will cover the utilities and the taxes on the building.
I know Mr. Manns and I had a chance to walk through 61 and 62, and that building is in very good condition. It would be a great, anybody that, is local and needs an industrial building, it's in great condition, I think. I'll open it up for discussion from Mr.
I just got a couple of comments. Because of the size of those facilities and our ability to lease them, and the importance of revenue coming in from those buildings, I think it probably would benefit us if we get together with our marketing committee and this committee, maybe as a joint meeting, and see whether we want to do any repurposing of these buildings, whether we think smaller rental areas. I've heard some comments. I've only been on the commission now for a couple of months, but I've heard some comments by some of the commissioners that perhaps smaller square footage is in demand or larger square footage isn't. We currently have a budget with some resources in it, but if we don't do something with that building, and we should get into a situation where we have to tap into these funds for maintenance or for whatever, we get into a situation where we don't have the funds to repurpose, then we're out begging again, and we certainly don't want to do that. So I would think that any plan we make, long-term plan we make going forward, and we should make that decision whether we want to take one or both of the big buildings and see if we should repurpose or whether we just want to go. I'm not suggesting either way, but right now we have funds to do some repurposing, and if we spend those funds on maintenance over a 5 or 8 year period, all of a sudden we'll have none, and then we'll be out begging. So if that is a feasibility, I don't know. I haven't done any marketing on it myself, but it just seems to me that we really need to take a long-term direction here as to which way we're going to go, or are we going to stay as we are right now and just hope for the best? Because I don't know which would be the best way to go.
I would like to suggest that maybe prior to next month's meeting, maybe at 6:30, we get together and have I guess I'll call it a study session, and sort of everybody can kind of give their opinion of what direction we'd like to go. Obviously, if we are going to repurpose and take one of those buildings, or both of them, but at least one of them, and decide to, I'll call it sort of splitting it up into smaller spaces, there's going to be a cost associated with that. So we're going to need to figure out if that's the direction we want to go, what that cost is going to be, and then, what type of revenue we might be able to derive from that. So to me, that's really the question, is do we want to take, I'd say we would start with one of the buildings and
I'd like to see the marketing group with it. I think we have some non-board member or commission members that sit on that marketing group, and they might have some insight that we could probably utilize.
I can try to put a joint meeting together if that if you guys would like that.
Is there a list of brokers, downriver guys that, I mean, I know we spoke a little bit, Ron, that we may be able to at least bring a list if that's the way we're going to go. I think we should seriously, if we're serious about it, we need to have a broker who is familiar with the area, familiar with what we're doing here and what's out there competition-wise.
I have started to talk to some of them. I'm waiting right now to get a quote, just a summary or a quote back from Signature and Associates. Brad Vergiver was the one I'm still waiting to hear back on. And I can go out and try to get a couple others just to compare.
Or if you could at least let us know who are the brokers that are most familiar, or the companies that are most familiar with, who's got the listings downriver. I mean, those typically are the people that are familiar with the market, and that's usually not too hard to, get your arms around.
Okay.
So we'll have that, Chris, at the next meeting.
I think that's important because it's one heck of a lease rate. I mean, there's a lot of disadvantages. There's a lot of advantages. One of the main advantages is what we're leasing for. I think we're right at the bottom end of the market. And if we advertise properly, I would think you'd get some interest.
Yeah, excuse me, and I don't know if you've taken any photos of I mean, it's phenomenal. It really is sharp right now. So if we have it marketed to the right people in the right area, I would think we'd have some nibbles.
The only other ad posting I need to get up, and I'm hoping to get up this week, is one in Cranes. I think something in there with some photos, I may spend a little bit of money and do it. I think something in there with some photos could generate some interest for us.
I would think Cranes would be a great outlet.
Okay, Mike, so if you can prepare information for us, and we'll have a study session prior to our meeting next month.
Okay, let's go.
That's going to focus on 61, 62, and 63.
Just a quick question. The 225, that is office and warehouse combined. The price stays the same no matter what?
Yep.
Do you know roughly how many square, or what percent of the building is office?
I'd say about probably 20%.
It's that much? Okay.
Yeah.
Typically, they run about 10%, but...
Because the Homeland Security offices are about 8,000 square feet, and then you have the offices that are inside the warehouse as well, and on the north side that we don't have a front door to, if you remember it. So I'd say it's about 15 to 20%, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on 61, 62, or 63? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 9, which is the chairman's report. My only comment is that obviously for the last 3 months we have not been able to meet because we lacked getting a quorum, and I think it's just been coincidental that we've had a number of commission members that have been traveling, and we just timing just hasn't been good. But we do have one slot still left on the commission that we need to fill, and obviously with a full commission, it's easier to get enough people to have a quorum. So if there's anyone that knows of anyone that's interested in volunteering to be on the commission, please have them see Mike. And I think there's a actual formal application that they have to fill out, and we'd be happy to talk to anybody that might be interested. And hopefully the people that are traveling won't have to travel on the nights we have meetings, and we won't have trouble getting a quorum as we have. So I do appreciate Jeff again volunteering, and thank you for being a part of our commission. And hopefully you won't be traveling anytime soon, so we can count on you for having a quorum. So with that, I'll open up the public comment. Carl, anything?
Basically, Ken and Mike kind of told you about what's happening with the FAA inspection, and it's something that has to be done every once in a while, and it's not really a big deal, but we do have to comply with a lot of their requirements because they're the ones that's funding some of the things that we like to do.
And Carl, are you or Al planning on being here for that inspection?
I know Al is, and I think I can make it. Right now, at this point in time, I left it open, and I'd like to be here and be part of it. I've been involved with this thing ever since basically 79. So being a tenant, a resident, and all this other stuff, and a pilot out of here, so I've got a lot of history that I know of.
Well, we would appreciate you and/or Al being here. I think that would help
Definitely.
give some history and some background, and also lend some support to Mike as the inspection happens.
Yeah, one quick comment, Mike. You'd mentioned briefly that you may have some issues to take care of before that inspection. I guess I'm strongly urging you to make sure they get taken care of.
We're in the process. Some have already been taken care of. So.
All right.
I don't know if this is off the record, but basically, we need to have a little housekeeping done around here. That's a good thing to have it done.
I agree with that. I think the housekeeping needed to be done. Some of the concern I think that we have is just the general rule of we do allow, one car, one boat. Obviously, I'm okay with those. I'd like to see that in a clean environment. I don't mind a little bit of a shop space and one car and one boat, but the clutter in some of our hangars does need to get cleaned up, and that's what we're in the process of doing. So I do agree that will be a positive outcome of it.
Well, then the key is just to maintain it. It's not easy.
Any other comments or questions from any of the board members?
I just have one.
Mr. Van Eyck?
Was mine the only packet riding around your car this weekend?
Yes.
Okay. No more comments.
Hearing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:43.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mans,
Support.
supported by Mr. Van Oz to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries.